Jennifer, something you said earlier, you used the phrase, the kind of doubt that I believe in. I love that. It's, paradoxical there. But
right.
One thing that struck me in your book, something I got out of it, is that doubt and belief actually kind of feed each other. You sometimes doubt in order to believe, not cogito ergo sum, but something like dubito ergo credo. I doubt, therefore I believe.
Absolutely. Well, the ways that doubt and belief have fed off of each other are really quite extraordinary. That's when I wrote Doubt, I wanted to tell some great stories that I knew, and I wanted some of the wonderful, innovative, exciting, colorful doubters that I knew about in history to be available to other people, and I also wanted to line them up so we could see how they interacted with each other. That actually surprised me a great deal. I didn't realize how much each doubter in each century looked back to those before, so that it's really a coherent history. But the extent to which also that each generation of doubters forced the believers to come to new ways of talking about their beliefs so that they could get it past the doubters. And because of the new things that the believers would throw up, the doubters would then find new and sophisticated ways of asking questions about that, of finally getting to a position where you can say, look, I have certain rules for evidence, and this doesn't fit in with that at all. But then, of course, there's the other side of coming to love doubt and coming to say, I believe in this approach to the universe. I believe that knowing in a certain classical way of knowing doesn't make sense to me. And having looked in other directions, I see other ways of getting to truth. And that's, I find that I'm a slightly alternative voice within the skeptics or atheist movement in that I love science. I've studied science deeply. I come from scientists. My father's a physicist. I'm entirely on the side of the scientists against religion, but once that's said, my approach to what the universe is about, to the most that human beings can know, I believe that poetry, art, and indeed psychoanalysis, which is another one of these things that people can be very skeptical about, but I think that's the wrong way. I think psychoanalysis, art, poetry, these are the ways to get to the kind of truth that's very difficult to put into straightforward, rational terms. And I want to say two things about that. One is that the human beings know, in a certain knowing way, their experience of being alive. And it is exceedingly difficult to put that into words or to in any way reproduce that for another person, which is why there are 6 billion of us and we're all lonely. It's very difficult to communicate. And that's wonderful because it means art will never go away. It's very difficult to even communicate with yourself, because you don't always know why you're angry at certain things. It seems absurd to be angry, but the kind of ways that we can use these sort of loose intellectual and artistic forms to try to approach what it is that we know inside our own minds and inside our own hearts, that experience for me is closer to the truth than the kind of measuring and comparing that is the empirical world of science, which has its place, but it isn't the grandest. The grandest place for me is these techniques for understanding the deeper aspect of human knowing.
To introspect and then also to express ourselves to people that you don't get with scientists in their lab coats with their beakers and test tubes.
That's right. And to know that the inner human life is as big as the whole universe. It's an extraordinary thing, and it's inside each one of us there to be explored. And I should add that this goes against a little bit the modern skeptics movement, but the classic definition of skeptics with a capital S, from Pyrrho of Elis in the 300 BC to the present, the history of skepticism has been a deeper skepticism than just doubting the nonsense that hucksters try to pull the wool over fools' eyes. The meaning of skepticism throughout history has been the skepticism of science too, skepticism of philosophy too, skepticism of anything that doesn't have appropriate awe for the part that we don't know. The context of science is often problematic, even if the inner details are perfectly measured.
You just touched a little on the history. Your book is so expansive in its scope. You're covering all this history. You cover Greek doubt, Jewish doubt, doubt in Buddhism, doubt among our founders, in literature, contemporary doubt. Looking back at all that history, Jennifer, who's your favorite doubter? Who's the one that you find yourself going back to time and again?
Well, I guess one of my all-time favorites is Montaigne, the Renaissance skeptic Montaigne. I guess he's really my favorite because of just what you say. I cannot stop going back to him. He's always opening my eyes. He's always giving me problems I can't solve to think through and come back. He just had a brilliant, witty way of looking at himself and trying to understand his own mind and working outward from there towards different aspects of culture or truth. Just the way he describes the way wherever we're born, we learn lessons about what the whole universe is and what we're supposed to do. And even if right over across the street they teach different things, we cling as if we're at sea and we found a rock. We cling to the one that we were taught as children. And how odd that is. How odd that we could think that truth is different over the fence. And his approach to then dealing with that, which was not to throw everything out, but to live with a kind of tension between what you pretend to know and what you know. Him I love. He's funny and he's sexy and strange.
And he also, you were talking about psychoanalysis and art. He kind of engages in those projects. You wouldn't call him psychoanalytical, obviously, but, he looked inward and examined his own motivations and his own background and all that. So he wasn't just focused out there.
Precisely. But, he's also a guy who'll tell you, look, in my lifetime, England has changed its religion 3 times. We found a part of the world which is larger than the part we had when I was born, because they found the New World. He came to understand that there was the New World during his lifetime. And he says, and also the Copernican revolution. He said, during my lifetime, instead of going around the Earth, we go around the sun. And his conclusion was not now we know, but so we'll never know. Maybe all of this will be overturned. Maybe we'll find even more land. To a point where it's funny, but it's a wonderful perspective to see how the human mind accepts and rejects the notion of doubt and gets used to some aspects of it. But there's so many different figures that I either learned more about when I wrote Doubt or learned of for the first time. Sometimes tiny little anecdotes that are just my favorite people, or these beautiful stories. Ecclesiastes in the Bible is one of the greatest doubters of all time, and he's probably in everyone's home already. And it's just, he'll tell you, why should we believe a man dies differently than a dog? They both go to dust.
Right, vanity, vanity, all is vanity.
That's right.
So you're nourished actually from the Bible in your doubt.
That's right, and from Job also. Job is a wonderful critique of the idea of a fair world, and it is not resolved. It's what poetry and art are supposed to be. They explore the problem, but they don't necessarily have to come to a conclusion.